Right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our Capanova event. 欢迎大家来到我们 Capanova 平台. Before we get into our topic tonight, I want to take 1 minute real quick introduce Capanova. Capanova stands for Chinese American Parents Association of Northern Virginia. 中文是北美华语家长协会. We are a non-profit organization. We started back in 2021. And over the past 5.5 years, we have provided more than 2,000 different topics, seminars over the Zoom platform and also in person as well. So I am really proud to say this is perhaps by far the most active community group in the local area. And this year particularly, we have pushed out several new programs this year. And the hiring lab is a new one that we are presenting this year. Actually, back in last year, when Patricia joined us on our platform, I have, such a great experience with her. She was very professional, and I was so impressed with her dedication. And we had a really good time, and we decided, you know what, let's collaborate more. And this hiring lab is basically the end result starting from last year. And over the past several months, to be honest, and we have discussed in details how are we going to structure this program. And I just want to give everybody a quick overview what this program are going to include. Last week is our first session, and overall, this program has 5 sessions. Last week, we had our first session, and it is about how to apply for Fairfax County jobs. And again, over that topic, Patricia and also her assistant talked about how to use the county information, the website, and also the tricks on how to send your applications and what are the contents, keywords, and all those useful information that she presented in the last session. Tonight is our second session, and it is going to focus on interview essentials, the interview skills. And again, Patricia is here, and together with Sky Henderson. And Sky is the community specialist from the same HR department. And before this session, I was complimenting both of them and saying, you know what, I don't know any other Fairfax County employee doing this, off hour, no pay, just a sheer passion to serve the
Yeah.
community. I have to really give a lot of credit, for their dedication. Now, the third session is going to be next week. So just keep in mind, every session is going to happen on the same day over the week on Wednesday at the same time, same Zoom link. So you don't have to, worry about, where's the Zoom link? It's always the same. So the next session, we have a speaker, and he is very experienced. You know, the the uh, the recruiter, and he had helped so many people recruiting to big companies, high tech companies, and he is going to talk about some of the specific what to look for. So next week it is going to be really interesting as well. The fourth session, again, Patricia helped me to ready a gut around, and we are going to have Fairfax County Public Library and also NCS come here, join us, talk to the community member, especially for the summer positions. I know a lot of young people in our community thinking about, internship opportunities, summer jobs, and however, a lot of internships are only open to the college students. But what about high school students? What they can do? So Patricia and also her colleagues are going to talk to the community about what are the resources available there on the fourth session. And on the last session, which is going to be on August 5th, we're going to have panel speakers from different fields. That's including architecture engineering, financial field, and also on the legal and also medical, potentially medical as well. So we are going to have speakers from different fields and IT, of course, to come to our platform, share their vision in terms of what is the future career looks like and in those particular field, and what are the students, especially who are getting into college, what they need to look for. So again, that is going to be our last session in terms of, you know, the visions and also the outlooks, what we can sharing from the industry speakers, on the particular professional fields. So again, we have designed this whole program specifically for our community and understanding there's a huge challenges these days, especially with AI involved. But however, with this information, with this program, we hope we can empower our members that you feel, you are not alone. You are having a backup from the community in terms, help, enhancing your job searching skills, your interviewing skills, your networking skills. Again, this is the community that we want to, build and provide support for our community. All right, so without any further ado, I'm going to give the stage to Sky and Patricia, and they are our key presenter tonight. And again, tonight's topic is going to be interview skills for employee. All right, Patricia and Sky, the stage is yours.
Sure. Thank you so much, Yujan. And first of all, thank you to everyone who is attending tonight. Because I always said you could be literally taking already a nap until tomorrow. You could be watching Netflix, but you have decided to spend an hour with us, and we're gonna be fun. So don't worry, we are going to get great information today. My name is Patricia Carrero with the Department of Human Resources of Fairfax County. Some of you probably were able to attend to our session last week, but if you didn't, welcome to the second one. So today I am assisting my colleague Sky Henderson, and I will let her to introduce herself. Enjoy this session. We will get, like I said, great tips and great info from her. Go ahead, Sky.
Thank you, Patricia.
Yep.
Hi, everybody. I'm so delighted to be here. Thank you so much for having me. And Patricia, we're very glad to meet you all. Tonight, we're going to be talking a little bit about interviewing. The course that this is based on a course that I teach. It's largely the material. It's been a couple of the slides have been taken out because they're specific to county positions. But this is a very good overview of the human experience of interviewing. And what I mean is, when I first took over this training several years ago, back before COVID, when everything was in person, the course tended to be very practical, by way of saying it was tips like, before you go in for an interview, make sure you know about the parking situation or how long it takes to get to your interview site. How long does it take to get to your interview site with traffic, without traffic? It was very practical in that way. And what I discovered is quite a few people were coming up after the class and saying, this is good material, but what do I do when I get into an interview situation and I get very nervous? It's hard for me to think. It's hard for me to talk. I tend to lock up. I can't think necessarily. I get very, very anxious. So we went back and we looked at the material, and we decided that interviewing is a very human experience. And what I mean is, you have two sides of you that are operating. You've got the cognitive side, which is the part of yourself that you use to apply for the position. What are your skill sets? What is your experience? What jobs have you had? Who your supervisors were? Where that was? When that was? You've interacted with people on the phone, setting up your interview, and then depending on who you are, you might have a wide range of things going on the emotional side. You might be very excited. You might be really, really nervous. You might be kind of a blend of both of those. So tonight we're going to talk about both parts of the experience, ways that you can prepare going into the interview to where you feel very confident. It's a little like studying for a test, in a sense, that you've reviewed your materials. It can be very easy to kind of even forget because you're so used to knowing what you know. You can kind of forget, oh yeah, I really am actually an advanced level Excel user, or wow, I've actually done customer service in some form or fashion for 20 years and I'm really good at it. But you're so used to having that skill set, you don't really stop and think about it. But we're also going to talk about ways that you can reassure yourself, reassure that part that may be a little anxious going into an interview situation, which can be a little bit nerve wracking. It's an evaluative situation. A lot is typically writing on it. For us, we really, really want the position. We, need to make money to live our life. So, okay. So, without further ado, let's get started. If you have any questions, please feel free to either put them in the chat or raise your hand. Patricia is going to be monitoring that. You can break in if you want. This is very free form. We don't have to wait to the end. Or if you have a story you'd like to tell, please feel free to share that. Okay, here we go. There's two aspects to interviewing, like we just talked about, and today's material is designed to help with both front, logistics and planning, and ways to help you feel more centered and relaxed about the whole process. We're going to talk about logistics first. Here's a good quote to start us off: follow your heart, but take your brain with you. Um, our impulses in how we go about living our life often stem from our emotions, and finding a different job or a new job is not really an exception. You might find yourself thinking something like, I feel like I want more of a challenge, or I have a good set of skills now and I'm excited at the possibility of making more money, or I'm just not happy in my current situation. I want to see what else is out there. These are common starting points. So, how do we take that impulse and utilize our cognitive part of our experience to help us prepare for that eventuality? Uh, Very basic stuff. Do your homework. If you're applying for a county job, this is an example of what you might want to consider. Our merit positions have, on nearly all of them, have supplemental questions designed to make sure that you meet at least the minimum qualifications for that merit position that you're applying for. Um, the reason you might want to review this is because they may provide some good ideas about what the hiring manager is looking for and what's important to them. If you're looking for a non-county position, and we'll talk about this more here in a minute, just reviewing your application is going to be very helpful. And reviewing the original job posting, if you have it, it could be a word of mouth. But if you do have that particular job description, pull that up and take a look at that and start thinking in terms of how well your skill set matches up to that. It obviously matches up pretty well, because otherwise they wouldn't have contacted you for an interview. So already you're doing well. Review the application you submitted. Link yourself to the qualifications in the job announcement. If you have a big screen, or if you have two screens, maybe consider bringing up your application or your resume on one side or one screen, and then putting the job that you've applied for on the other screen. Put your finger on the screen if you're comfortable doing that. If not, you can go through and highlight. It's a really good kind of psychological exercise in, oh yeah, that's right, they did want somebody with SQL Server programming experience. And I've got that. Okay, yeah, no, I'm good there. Okay, let's see, Oracle. Yeah, I've got Oracle. Okay. Expense reports. Yeah, I had that position a few years ago where that's all I did. Whatever the thing is, it can help lock into your own mind exactly what it is you're going to be talking about. And it's a good confidence boost too. They didn't just select you willy-nilly. There's reasons why your application looked good to them. So We live in an information age. Find out about the organization, web pages, budget submissions, newsletters, so on and so forth. You're only going to make yourself look really good if you know a lot about the organization you're going into interview with. At the county level, especially, we are beholden to county residents. Therefore, we're required by law to post anything to do with how we spend our money. And that can be very wide ranging. Sometimes it's very basic programs, sometimes it's grants, sometimes it's things that we're doing out in the community. There's Facebook, there's social media, there's Instagram, there's Twitter, there's YouTube's. And each agency, depending on the agency, and I'm using the county, of course, as an example, is there's an enormous amount of information about how that agency is spending its money. Universities, higher education are very similar. Um, Jobs in general, especially if it's a for-profit organization, they're going to have some amount of information out there. Even if it's just a Google News search, you're going to find some stuff. Okay. More do your homework, brainstorm, list your experience, capabilities, talents, accomplishments, and goals. And you know what? I always stop and say this because depending on who you are and depending on what your experience has been, this might or it might not be something that you may have a little bit of hesitation around. Some of us were raised with the idea that if you talk about yourself, that's not a good look. You should be seen and not heard. If you're a kid, sometimes some of us grew up with that mentality. But this is the opposite. This is where you need a clear-eyed listing of everything that you know how to do. Don't be shy. If you are really, really excellent in certain aspects of accounting, for example, list all of those things out. If you've won awards, if you have specific certifications that may not even be required in your current job or even in your profession, that's great. Anticipate any questions that might be asked of you. Anticipate any sensitive questions like gaps between your jobs. We'll talk a little bit about that in just a minute. And very importantly, prepare your list of questions. This is your job that you're looking for, and you are interviewing them as much as they are interviewing you. Even if it's just kind of an odd feeling, some of us walk away from interviews, and perhaps somebody listening has had this experience. I know I have, where you walk away from an interview and you just don't even really know why, but something felt a little off. But you will be able to define that feeling a little bit further if you have your own list of questions. What is the organization? What do they think about some industry initiative? How do they handle holiday parties? I don't know. It can be anything. Again, you are interviewing them. Bonuses, you're not going to find that as much at the county, of course, but a lot of organizations have bonuses, or they have special parties, or they have charity things that they do in the community. It's up to you, whatever you're curious about. Flexible time, if it hasn't been brought up in your interview specifically. If you have a family, things that are going on with your kids, the schedule, your general household commitments, factor those in, ask as many questions around that as you want. Okay, let's talk about gaps in resume. If you're laid off or fired, how do you handle that? At the county, you're generally not going to be asked about this. And the reason is because the county recommends to all of its agencies that if you're going to ask, let's say a certain number of questions, let's say it's 10 questions. If you're going to ask 10 questions of all of the, let's say there's 12 people in a pool of people that are coming in to interview for a merit position, you have to ask all 10 questions to all 12 people in the same order. It's very specific that way. That's part of our merit system, which is a system that is put in place to ensure that the highest qualified candidate is hired. So you don't want to go off too much into specific resume or application related questions. Now, there's a reason why you were asked to come in for an interview with the county. I don't want to leave you without, with that impression. But relative to the actual position that you're going to be looking to interview for, they're interested in how well you're going to fit into uh, that situation. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. Fired. Okay. Laid off is, but let's go back, because not all of you are going to be interviewing at the county. You might have a much more relaxed interview that's much more off the cuff and conversational at a different location. So if you're laid off, most people understand that. If it was budget cuts, for example, that just happens. Companies, organizations expand and contract all the time. If you've been out in the workforce for any amount of time, you probably have been laid off or furloughed temporarily, or whatever the situation is. Just be prepared to answer the question. Fired is a different animal. I would suggest that you don't that you're clear about what happened without you don't have to go into huge detail. You don't need to go into, well, this happened and then this happened. You can just be professional and take the higher ground and simply say, you know what, really just wasn't a good fit. I came into the job with a certain understanding of the expectations, and it turns out that really wasn't the situation. And so it didn't work out, but I'm glad I had the experience, because I feel like I learned certain things. In fact, you could actually pivot into something positive. You could say, yeah, it didn't work out. I did learn something. And I did notice that even though it didn't work out in the long term, in the short term, I got some really good customer service experience in this particular location. And then you can tell a little story about the thing that you learned. So it's not bad to be asked about that. That happens as well, along with being laid off. Let's talk about illegal and discriminatory questions. Acquaint yourself with what is or is not legal to ask a candidate. Is somebody saying, did I miss something? Oh, okay. I thought I heard somebody say something. Okay. These are areas generally
I'm sorry, Sky. Yeah, there is a question.
Sure.
It says, is there a typical interview question list that you can recommend? Any tricks on practice your answers? Formal, casual, humorous? People tend to feel very nervous during an interview and have a hard time presenting themselves. Any tricks to relax and to be easy?
That's a great question. Sure, go ahead.
Easy. I'm sorry. That's it.
I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm sorry.
No worries.
Actually, we're going to be talking about that here in just a minute. We're going to talk about ways that you're going to that you can help yourself feel a little bit more at ease going into the situation. In fact, just let me finish this one thing, and we're about to go into some things that I think will address that question. Okay, so areas, and these are some general areas that it's frowned upon, borderline illegal, depending on how it's asked. You can't ask about family status, race, age, religion, citizenship or nationality, arrests, or disability. The only way anything like this can come up is 2 points about that. The first one is it has to be asked of everybody being interviewed for the job, and it only can be asked relative to the actual performance of the job. For example, you can't say, what religion are you? That's illegal. But the employer can give an interviewee a schedule and say, this is a typical week's hour breakdown. And some of that might be on a Saturday or a Sunday. This is the closest they can get. And then the employer is allowed to say, would you be able to meet the hourly requirements for this position, even if the schedule changed at the last minute? That kind of thing. As long as it's relative to the position, they can kind of obliquely come in these areas, but they cannot directly ask you about it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And what do you do if you are asked a question like this? Because keep in mind, not everybody is an HR professional you might be dealing with. You could be dealing with somebody, again, at the county level, I doubt that you're going to run into this, but you might run into somebody out in the world that is interviewing you that knows a lot about the position, but they may not be well versed in HR law. You can simply be polite and say something like, I don't want to seem evasive, but can you explain how that question relates to the job for which I'm applying? Most of the time, something like this will be a little bit of a wake-up call to the person talking to you. That might be kind of be a subtle signal to them saying, oh, wow, maybe I crossed the line. And if it doesn't do that and they continue down this line of questioning, you are well within your rights to either terminate or just decline politely to, you can terminate the interview if it's really bad, or you can simply say, I decline to answer that question. And you don't have to go into why. You don't have to say that's illegal. You can just say, I decline to answer that question. Okay. So the basic point of all this, a person interviewing you will want to know three things. Can you do the job? Will you do the job? And can you fit into our team environment? Okay, so going back to the question we just had, there's different types of interview questions. One is free form. It's much less formal, and it's usually part of an unstructured interview. It's very meet and greet. You know, you sit down with somebody over a desk and it's more conversational. Behavioral based structured questions are much more formal, and they're usually part of a structured interview. If you're going to come work at Fairfax or interview at Fairfax County government, almost invariably you're going to find you're in a behavioral based interview. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But to give you an example of the free form interview, many years ago when I was in college, I was in a journalism class, and part of the journalism class was an internship. And this is West Texas, so it's kind of in the middle of nowhere. I went to Texas Tech University, and it's oil land. It's very, very large, lots of tiny oil towns. And I was assigned to the Mule Shoe Journal, very, very tiny paper. I drove up for my interview, and I was all prepared for my interview. And I met with the editor, and it was about 2 hours of chit chat. And I mean, it was like, where are you from? Sit down. You know, it was very friendly, but it had nothing to do with writing. It had nothing to do with the newspaper world. And at the end of the interview, I got the internship, and apparently that's all I needed to do. I guess because I was free, but also because that was kind of the cultural of West Texas. It's very, very friendly. Anyway, so you get the idea. Free-form interview questions. Tell me about yourself. What are your greatest strengths? What's your greatest weakness? What kind of work environments do you prefer? These are pretty much self-explanatory, but I do want to talk about what is your greatest weakness, because there's been a lot of discussion about how to answer this question. When I was getting out of college, the general idea that people kept giving me was answer your weakness with a strength. So you would say something like, I work too hard. I care too much. But it seems like that fell out of favor fairly fast because it just sounds a little bit insincere. The general thinking now is the question is not designed to find out anything. In other words, it's not designed to find out specifically where your greatest weakness is. It's designed more to observe how you answer that question. Are you able to say anything that has to do with, you know what, I tend to be a little bit too hands-on in a group project. That's a very normal human thing to do. But you can turn the question into a very positive thing. Just like we were saying earlier, you can pivot to something more positive. You can say something like, you know what, I often have been told that I sometimes have difficulty in letting tasks go when I work with a group or when I work with another person. This is because I, upon reflection, I realize that I really just want to make sure everything gets done, and I'm a little nervous that things aren't going to get done. But because I've listened to people tell me this, I've been able to kind of work on that, and it's enabled me to relax a little bit and be a little bit more focused on the process and how tasks are getting done. And I feel like it's made me a much better coworker. You see what I mean? You've essentially said that you have a weakness, but we all have weakness. The trick here with this question is to show I'm aware of my weakness. And not only am I aware of it, I've been able to focus on it, work on it, employ strategies to help me not be governed so unconsciously by it. Work environment, just be honest. Are you flexible in a solitary work environment? Do you prefer working with a group? Um, just you know, just do some basic self-reflection there. Behavioral-based questions. We're going to talk about this for a minute. This is the thing that the county recommends. The questions are based on the idea that past behavior is predictive of future behavior. Your responses reveal your skill and temperament on the job. Okay. The main idea behind behavioral-based questions are, tell us about a time when. We're always telling stories to each other, always, constantly, all the time. You get home, you talk to your friend on the phone, you talk to your significant other, you talk to your kids, whatever it is, you're talking about your day or specific things that happened when you went to go get gas that afternoon, something odd happened, or whatever it is, or this thing at work, or I had a strange text from my sister, whatever it is. We're constantly relating to each other about stories. This is no different. The only difference is that on the agency side, again, this is the structure that the county recommends its agencies follow. On the agency side, the agency that is filling this position that you're going to interview for, they have done some basic research on the requirements of this position. So they have gone in and said, oh, okay, well, this administrative assistant position is about 50% going to be interfacing directly with people who are coming into our office. So it's good for us to have a question in the interview for, tell us about a time when you dealt with a difficult customer, or you were trying to figure out a scheduling problem, or whatever the thing is that you know for sure that this position is going to be dealing with. So as an example, and again, the county uses something called anchored responses. These are very broad these are very broad categories of types of responses they're looking for. It's not you're going to either have the right answer or not. These are very general benchmarks for what they're looking for. For example, if the question is, tell us about a time when you dealt with a difficult customer, you might give one of a couple of different answers. Let's say you say, I went and got my supervisor. Okay, well, you did something, but that's not very comprehensive of a response. It's a little bit weak. A middle of the road might be, I got them some coffee and I looked into it. A strong answer, that might be something like, I got them coffee, I expressed sympathy, I got them talking, and I presented a solution. So you see kind of a spectrum here, right? And typically in anchored responses, you're going to have numbers that are given for different types of answers. And that helps in the evaluative phase on the agency side. And that you might find a similar rating system outside the county. Let's talk about accommodations. If you need an accommodation during the interview, talk to your hiring manager at the time of the interview scheduling. Now, this is at the county, but I would imagine, although I cannot speak with any great surety, that something similar is probably happening outside the county. You're not required to disclose your disability prior to or during the interview. If you are extended an offer and you need an accommodation for your new job, you may ask at that time. Procedural Memorandum 3904, this is the county document that governs this particular topic if you are looking for, and these are available publicly. Okay. Common sense stuff for an in-person interview, make a dry run if you're not familiar with the area the day before, you're not in a rush. You can get a sense of the traffic, maybe if you go at the same time. Check out the parking. Is it paid? Did they validate? Get a good night's sleep the night before. Decide what you're going to wear so that's not a decision that you have to make the next day if you're a little bit nervous or frazzled. The day of, don't forget any materials. Arrive a little bit early with your cell phone off. If you're in the interview, just be courteous, just very basic manners. Smile with good eye contact and good posture and a firm handshake. Uh, you might want to note the names of the interviewers. Don't be embarrassed or self-conscious if you want to jot them down. That's very understandable, and nobody's going to hold that against you. You might have some icebreakers. And then afterward, you might want to consider sending an emailed or handwritten thank you note. Just politely saying thank you for your time. Okay, online interviews. You may have one, you may not, but let's talk about the things that you might want to think about if you are preparing for an online interview. Before the day of, find out the details, choose a location. I'm sorry?
No
Sorry.
worry, yeah.
Okay, I think I'm just picking up a mic. Okay, choose a location, create good lighting, figure out your devices, and maybe do a test run if you're able to. The day of, dress professionally, eliminate distractions such as pets or kids, perhaps. Test your technology again. Think about your body language. Log on a little bit early and set up your space however you would like. Perhaps a plant or two. It depends. It doesn't have to be. You don't have to go into any great effort or whatever. But every little bit of planning like that probably is positive. Okay. Prepping for online interview. We just talked about that. Okay, one last thing in the cognitive section, and we're about to turn into the more emotional part of it. You might want to consider asking one last thing before your interview terminates, and that is the following question: what do you like best about working here? Asking this simple question shifts the focus from you as candidate to organization as employer. Again, you're interviewing them as much as they're interviewing you. Because first off, from a head perspective or a cognitive perspective, it's good information. You might discover something that you didn't know before. You might discover that they have a big banquet that's all the funds are donated to charity, or they do a fund drive for, a homeless shelter, food pantry, whatever it is. You might not know that they have a special thing that they do just for employees. But also for heart considerations, it's also a subtle reminder to yourself, and by extension, the interviewers, that as much as they're interviewing you, again, you're interviewing them. And what I found is I usually, and I've been working for almost 40 years, what I discovered is that almost immediately there's a vibe shift in the room, for lack of a better phrase. Uh, I found that there tends to be a subconscious effort to respond to this question in a way that's almost trying to convince you that their environment has a lot to offer to you. You'll find people that you'll find that either the person or the panel that you're talking to will typically go, "Oh yeah, I've been here for 15 years, and I will probably retire here because they're so good to their employees." And our executive director, they're very, very hands-on, and they are very much have your back. And it's just been nothing but positive. I find my coworkers very pleasant, on and on. Conversely, you might find out. I had a friend of mine that went in for an interview a long time ago, and she used this question. And she told me, I said, well, how did they answer? And she said, well, they all looked at each other. It was a panel of 3 people. They all looked at each other, and one of them got up and shut the door and came back and said, you might want to just withdraw your application because all of us are looking for jobs. And it turns out that they were kind of like, things aren't good. We just had a major client drop us. They're talking about possible budget cuts. It was nothing big, but it was also information that you definitely wanted to have if you were considering, switching a job, especially. So anyway, just something to think about as you wind up your interview. Okay, let's talk about the heart side. Your emotions make you human. Even the unpleasant ones have a purpose. Don't lock them away. If you ignore them, they just get louder. Isn't that the truth? Your emotions have a purpose. They're working to protect you. It's just that the part of the brain that is often processing emotion is also processing perceived threats. And your logical brain often can't tell the difference. And while job interviews generally aren't a threat, they can evoke similar heightened alerts within our nervous system. The perceived stress of looking for a job is more intense than the perceived stress for that of most all notoriously stressful activities, including moving, planning a wedding, getting a root canal, public speaking, being trapped in an elevator, doing taxes, or spending a weekend with your in-laws. And by extension, this necessarily extends to the interview process. Yes, it is stressful to look for a job, but it's equally stressful, I would argue, to go in and argue on behalf of yourself that you are the best person for the job. Why is that? Well, you're meeting positions in a position of authority. You're talking about yourself, which again, for some of us is could be difficult or certainly challenging. And you're being evaluated or judged on your appearance, demeanor, and ability to sell yourself. And interviews can be intimidating. Okay, this is the stress continuum model. It was developed by the Marine Corps community. And if you Google stress continuum model, this is everywhere. I think it's been adopted by quite a few organizations. Hopefully you walk around just day to day in the green zone. Something happens, you get a flat tire, whatever, you might bump it up into yellow or orange. And if it's really an emergency, you might find yourself in the red zone. Let's talk just for a moment about PTSD. Let's see. The National
Sky,
Center for
I'm sorry, Sky, I'm going
Yeah,
to
yeah,
interrupt you for a minute because there are two more
sure,
questions about what you were just talking about.
sure.
So we already took the first 1 second. If you have to travel from outside the state for an interview,
Hmm.
is it normal to ask for accommodations, like ask for covered travel expenses?
That's a good question, and I don't know. I have never
Okay,
been asked that or thought about it.
I
I
think
don't
that I
know if
can
any.
answer that.
Yeah.
So, thank you for the question. So, all depends on the position. So, let's say that if they're going to accommodate your interview online, that could be doable, like similar to this, either as Zoom or Teams. Now, when there are positions such as directors of a whole agency, they might handle the first panel interviews online, but they most likely would like to meet the person. So at that point, they will cover the travel expenses, and we had recruitments that happened in the past that way. So all depends, but in most cases, it is more of the communication between the applicant and the agency who is having that interview. So depends. There is no black and white on this one. The second question is, what framework would you recommend to answer the questions? Tell me about yourself.
I'm sorry, I missed the first part of that. Can you repeat
What
that?
framework you would
Framework? Okay.
recommend to answer the question? Tell me about yourself.
What framework?
Yeah.
Um, well, I have been asked that before in interviews, and I feel like if you can think ahead, if some people are really good off the cuff, they're good. They're like, okay, I can spend a few minutes doing a very basic, let's see, I graduate, depending on how old you are and what your experience has been so far. I think the last time I was asked that was probably 20, 25 years ago. So I hadn't had a lot of work experience. So I would talk about, well, I graduated from Texas Tech University in this year, and then I worked as an intern for this organization. And my husband and I moved up to Virginia in 2000, and I got a job. I do a very basic think of bullet points in your head, very, very high level, like it's a 30,000 foot view. You're an airplane. You're able to see a lot at one point. if you are a planner, if you're less comfortable being off the cuff, write maybe a brief outline. Maybe say where you're from. You can put some personal stuff in there if you're comfortable. You can say, my wife and I have 3 kids, and or not. I mean, it's up to you. I tend to stick with just the professional stuff.
Yeah.
But it's also kind of humanizing too if you want to throw in a
Yeah, and that's
personal.
great. What I would like to add to this is, sometimes with the county is it's just the fact that you have certain time, you have such as short time to answer, let's say 8 to 10 questions in 45 minutes. Some agencies are a little more generous and they give you an hour. So always keep in mind that when they ask you about yourself, you don't want to just say everything. As this
Sure.
guy said, I will summarize how the way I do it. I tell you exactly how do I do it, but that doesn't mean that is right, but it helps me a lot. So I want to share it because maybe it might help you. I start always saying, of course, what is my education, and in what. And then I talk a little bit as a summary of what are my experiences that are very related to the job that I'm applying for. And then I talk about my technical skills, if I'm bilingual, if I know certain programs and stuff in computers, etc. And then I talk a lot about my soft skills, which are, responsibility or teamwork. And here is when you can add that personal touch that Sky is talking about. So I
Hmm.
will balance it out. I will just put a little bit of very personal, but also very technical to the position. So they can have an idea about yourself. So I hope this helps.
Excellent. Absolutely. Yeah,
Um,
and if you
th-
if you kind of keep that job description of what you're applying for or interviewing for kind of in the background, and see if you can kind of match up as you're going
the,
with your
the next
overview.
question is, thank you, Sky. What are some indicators that the place is not right?
Um, that's a good question. And if anybody wants to chime in, I would say off the bat, if they're disorganized or
Mm-hmm.
perhaps impolite, or you get the sense that you're almost intruding even though you were asked to come in. I mean, there are these kind of intangibles that to me, for me personally, would not give me a good feeling. You could also come in and see perhaps things not being well run, whatever that might look like, depending on the position and depending on the organization. I think it's a lot of just observing. Um,
Mm-hmm.
you might see maybe it's very loud. Maybe it's an environment that's very loud. That doesn't necessarily mean it's bad, but it might be a poor fit for you. Um, but I think
And I
generally overall, the sense that you get for how you're being treated just as a person coming in will tell you a lot.
Yeah,
Did,
that's a pretty good point. And I would also add to that that basically the behavior of the panel, if they come late with no excuse, you
hmm.
have been waiting and they schedule you at 9:30 a.m., but it's 10 a.m. and they don't show up, or two members are not there, that tells you a lot and nobody gives you good explanations. That tells you right there that there is, like Sky said, a lot of um, lack of organization skills, no preparation. If they kind of scramble asking you questions, or that questions that are very poorly developed, that would be another
Yes,
sign. If you're
yes.
like, wow, what kind of question was that? Illegal questions. So it is a lot of the kind of common sense. And I always said the gut feeling too. How did you
Hmm.
feel like going to this place? Were
Right.
they welcoming? Were they, you kind of sense a little bit.
Hmm.
So I think that that would be good signs. The next question, is, Kai, is to what extent will a Fairfax County resident be favored over a non-resident under the same job requirements? Do you want to answer that or should I go
They
ahead?
they will not be favored at all.
Okay, great,
That
thanks.
they will not. I mean, Patricia can probably talk to this a little bit more because she and I work on a team of analysts, and Patricia did this for a long time before she took over her current position. The screening process is rigorous, but the analysts are not looking at names. They're looking at solely and only the skill sets. relative
Exactly.
to what the requirements of the job are, period. We have many, many, many employees that live in Maryland or DC. It's or outside in a different county in Virginia. It just is a non-issue.
Exactly. There is no preference and there is not a requirement either. The
Absolutely.
next question is how to answer the question. Oops, I cannot read this. Something happened in my computer.
Oh no.
Okay,
Um,
now, okay, it was covering, I was covering myself. How to answer the question, do you know X and I don't know? What do you mean with that? Sang, can you please
it
elaborate on this
yeah
question?
it's just to say if you have a interviewer ask you a very technical question and you happen don't know the answer and you don't want to look really dumb and or in fear or whatever and what would be the best way to answer that?
Um,
Go ahead, Sky.
well,
Thank you.
just off the top of my head, I would say uh, scrounge around in your head very rapidly for what you do know that's related, to
Uh-huh.
where you can put something forth. And even if you can kind of talk near it, and at worst case, you can just say, I'm sorry, I don't really know. I mean, you don't want to fake it and you don't want to make anything up. But if you can
Mm-hmm.
talk as close to it as you possibly can, if in other words, if the question is, do you know how to program in BASIC? And you know
Mm-hmm.
how to program in COBOL and SQL, whatever the things are that you know how to program
Mm-hmm.
in, you can say, I don't have a lot of experience in BASIC, but I do understand with my experience in SQL that there are several crossovers relative to, and I'm starting to make stuff up because I don't know much about programming. But if you can make some kind of connection to the thing that you don't know a lot about, you're gonna at least show that you know something. That's what I would say. And if you absolutely know nothing, then I would say I don't know anything.
Yeah, that's a pretty
Were you
good
gonna
point.
say
And
something?
also, you can flip it a little bit, just kind of like Sky said, trying to rescue whatever is in your brain that can be applicable, but at the same time, let them know that you have excellent skills to learn and that you are a fast learner. And as far as I can get the training that will help me to succeed on this, that I probably don't know much, it will work out. Just attitude sometimes can be over of the knowledge.
Absolutely.
Unfortunately, with the county, sometimes with the county, since everything it was a score, um, somebody else will come with more knowledge on the thing. But I think that for managers also, we are all human beings, and we go a lot with the attitude that someone can put into a challenge, such as a question that you don't have an answer.
Right. Right.
I don't
Yeah,
see
I,
any
I,
more
I really, I,
questions.
re yeah, I really like that answer. You put there, and to be honest, I think one, you don't want to fake. Like I see, if I mean, especially on the technical side, and if people on the interviewer side notice that you are making things up, and it can be the negative feeling can get really worse immediately. So like Patricia said, this may be a area that I need to look into. But however, let me explain. I am really good at learning new things and give them an
Right.
example what you have done before, and I can
Exactly.
pick up real quick. And I'm sure this area would not be a issue hinder me. Any new challenges will not be any issue hinder me, and I can learn and grasp any new skills real quick. And again, turn the story around. Not
Yes.
dwelling on the things that you don't really know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for
Especially if
that.
you have maybe a couple people on your references list that can attest to that. You can say,
There you
uh,
go. Yeah.
yeah, my former supervisor
Can testify, yeah.
will testify to my ability to learn stuff. I once locked myself inside of my office for 2 weeks and buckled down and taught myself how to do XYZ thing.
There you
And
go. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. As long as you can pivot to something that is connected and still positive about you, even though you may not, strictly speaking, know everything there is to know about that thing.
There you go.
Yeah.
I don't see any other questions, so you can go ahead and proceed with your
Okay.
presentation, Sky. Thank you.
Okay, we're almost done. We just have a few more slides and then we're finished. Okay, just to circle back to PTSD real quick, the National Center for PTSD estimates that 6 out of every 10 men, or excuse me, 6 out of every 100 American men and 5 out of every 100 American women experience at least one trauma in their lives. Added to this, social scientists now recognize a phenomenon called secondary trauma, which is a lot like secondary smoke. It's defined as indirect exposure to trauma through a firsthand account or narrative of a traumatic event. So if you are very, very connected to somebody, you care about them very much, whoever that might be, if they have endured a trauma or perhaps a series of traumas, you can wind up feeling a lot of the same emotions. We are empathetic humans. Nearly all of us tend to empathize with people, especially when we are very close to them. Now, what does this have to do with interviewing for a job? Well, if you suffer from PTSD or CPTSD, stressful situations like a job interview might trigger a sense of fear or uncertainty that might very well be profound or intense. And if it's particularly bad, you might feel yourself very nervous beyond the normal stress of the situation. You might lock up, you might have trouble thinking, you might feel afraid, and your brain might become foggy, which takes an already stressful situation of a job interview and it can make it really unpleasant for you. So, things that will help, no matter who you are, no matter where you're coming from. Treat yourself well, whatever that looks like in the time going up to the interview. If that's going out for a nice dinner, if it's going to a spa, whatever it is, it could be just reading a book and just getting away from responsibilities for a little while just by yourself. Visualize your success. We'll talk about that here in a minute. And reduce your stressors. If you, whatever that might look like for you, in the time leading up to your interview, do eliminate whatever tends to stress you out and increase the amount of things that make you feel centered and positive. Uh, that that may or may not have something to do with caffeine, for example, or getting enough sleep and exercise. Um, if you can find a quiet place, close your eyes and visualize yourself being successful in your interview, you'll be amazed if you haven't done it, how much that can really help you walking into that situation. Visualization is used by elite athletes before competitions to improve performance. And reduce stressors, uncomfortable clothing, getting the possibility of getting lost, showing up late, choosing an outfit that's comfortable and looks good on you, and making a dry run, all the things we've talked about. So let's talk about visualization. I don't know if you guys, if anybody here has read about brain plasticity. It's a rapidly growing field and it's super interesting. I wrote this down. I thought it was really interesting. Research shows that if one person does something and another person visualizes doing that same thing, the same brain areas are activated in both of them. And if they both keep doing the thing or imagining doing the thing, their brain regions undergo actual physical change to the same degree. And you can harness this for life goals. When you imagine walking into an interview being confident and relaxed in a given situation, your brain processes it as if it is happening now. In fact, afterwards to your brain, it is a memory in the same way the person that's actually doing it at the same time you're visualizing it. Both brains have it stored as a memory. That's pretty interesting. I really like that. If you do a basic Google search on visualization, you'll find a lot of information on that, suggestions for specific exercises. Generally, just to wrap this up, if you're nervous, take a deep breath and smile, because interviews can range anywhere from fun and interesting to nerve-wracking, and sometimes they're all of those things. And we're all different, and all interviews are different, and we come to the table with different experiences. So if you just keep it simple, take a very deep breath, getting as much air deep into your lungs as possible, and then exhaling, that can really do a lot. And just remember, if you're going into an interview, you were picked for this opportunity from among possibly hundreds of candidates. That's certainly true at the county level. A lot of our candidate pools are pretty big. They are looking forward to meeting you and talking to you. And that concludes, I think we have one more quote. Yes, head knowledge without heart knowledge is worse than useless, but when head and heart join forces, it changes our lives forever. And that is the end of our presentation. Does anybody have any questions or anything they'd like to just talk about or ask?
Okay, so I got two questions here. How to show your eagerness to the job without overdoing it?
I think that comes through. If you're doing the things that we had talked a little bit about tonight, doing your homework, you've researched uh, uh, the organization that you're talking to. If you know a lot about what the position is, you've read the job posting, you're very familiar with the duties, you're very familiar with the skills. I think if that is locked in enough and you're centered enough about your knowledge about what they're looking for, a lot of that enthusiasm is just going to kind of bleed through. I don't think you have to do anything specific. I don't think you have to act a certain way. I think your enthusiasm, if you've done some basic preparation on both fronts, is really just going to help you.
I agree with that.
But if anybody has anything more specific, that would be, please feel free to speak
Yeah,
up.
feel free
Things
to
that things
share if you
things that
have
have
been.
worked for you. Absolutely.
Yeah, if you have been in interviews that were very successful, feel free to share with the group because we all learn all the time from everybody. So
Absolutely.
if you have anything, the next question is what are the follow-up tips you would recommend after interviewing? Write an appreciation email to the interviewers.
hmm
Is it appropriate to ask for business cards from interviews and follow up with them later?
I've never gotten that last question. I wouldn't see why that would be difficult, or a problem in any way. People know that you're coming in and you want to be professional, and you're also probably a little nervous. You might very well forget their names the second they say them because you're focused on what you want to say in the interview that's about to come. So I think that's completely fine.
Yeah.
Um,
And in
worst
case,
case, they go, oh well, I have I'm on a different floor and I would have to go get them or whatever. Then you just jot their name down. You say, no problem. Can you
yeah.
tell me your name again and your email address? Whatever. Um, there's a lot of latitude here. I don't think there's a specific um, thing to do or not to do. Just be polite about it. They know
Hmm.
that you're nervous. They know that you want to make a good impression. And you know what? There are very often people on a panel are nervous too. That may not be they may be part of a panel because they know a lot about the position, but that doesn't mean that they are in their comfort zone. They may be a little nervous too.
That is very true. And the cards, most of what I observe in many agencies, lots of panel members, they actually offer you the business card even without asking. You
Mm,
are very free to ask the card, but in the worst case scenario that you really want to follow up with a nice email, you can always contact the person that called you initially for the interview. In case you don't have those names, just email the person that emailed you, inviting you for the interview.
sure.
99% of the agencies they do it via email, so you can actually use that tool. There are a few things that I would like to share really quick and more tips. And it is after an interview, many of us can feel the frustration of, oh, in question two, I missed this, and that. On question five, I could say more things, or you can feel very comfortable. Whatever is the case, just celebrate yourself. Just the fact that you went that far in the process with the county. It is okay. No many people, and I tell you this, and we mentioned this last week that we got so many applicants, and sometimes takes a very good number of applications to finally get into an interview. And that is the common thing to a lot of people, even that they are very
Hmm.
qualified. It happened to me personally. I applied
Me too.
many
Me
times
too.
and in
Yep.
different years until finally I was able to get an interview. So don't feel disappointed if you don't get it on the first interview. Don't feel disappointed that you didn't answer everything that you believe that it was supposed to be perfect, because you know that you did your best during that interview. So kind of do a little celebration of yourself after you finish that. Also practice. I want to tell you a secret that actually I do. I don't like doing it, but I do it. I create questions and I practice in front of a mirror. Trust me, I do not
That's
like it. I'm
great.
like, oh my God,
Yeah.
I don't like my voice. I don't like my face and whatever. But it helps so much and it helps with time. So I kind of give myself 3 minutes and I answer myself. It's at the beginning, I was like, oh, this is so ridiculous. I don't like it. But actually it helps me because when the time comes, I just remember things that I was telling to myself when I practice myself. So
Hmm.
that's a little tip for some people. It will work, but I'm just sharing with you that it worked for me. Also, it is okay to be in silence after they ask a question, which is something that I didn't know before. I was like, oh, I'm going to lose points if I don't answer immediately. Not necessarily. Just organize your ideas. So if somebody asks the question, you don't have to start speaking immediately. You just give a little bit of pause if you want to. If you have the answer immediately, go ahead and proceed. But if you need to take some time, and
Hmm.
even to take a blank piece of paper and just tell them that you're just like capturing, your ideas. You can organize your ideas before you start speaking. And what I'm saying that is because sometimes when I don't organize my ideas, I start rambling and I just jump from one side to another. So it is okay to take some seconds or even a minute to organize your ideas, and then you start speaking about, what was asked.
That's a
The
really
other
good point, Patricia. Yeah, I agree with you.
Tip that I would like to also share, if you get invited to several interviews, accept them, even if you don't want the job anymore, or even if you don't actually want the job. The reason for that is because the more practice, more experience. So you just go and practice and practice and practice. And one day you'll be like, it's an interview. I am an expert. I have a
Hmm.
friend that he couldn't find a job. And I am not kidding. He had at least 60, he said 65 or 69 interviews in 3 months. It was like
Wow.
one after another because he didn't have a job and he just applied everywhere. And he will get jobs online, he will get jobs in person, he will get a flight out for interviews, and he became an expert. Literally, he just doesn't have to even prepare. Well, he got a job already, but I just kind of thought that's kind of too much. But as like riding a bike, the more you do it, the more you get more comfortable. The other thing is that I said don't feel frustrated and celebrate a little bit yourself. I talk about the silence and just keep applying. And remember, the county has a very structured interview. People won't be probably looking at you the way we are looking at each other here in this video, but it's because everybody's taking notes. Everybody's taking notes, the panel, and sometimes it feels not personal at all. But trust me,
Hmm.
everybody's paying attention to everything that you're saying. We're just capturing everything that you're saying. That's what I wanted to kind of share with you.
I just want to also say another thing, just in case this is happening to anybody else that's listening to me. Um, I've had more than one person share something with me that I was surprised by, but I could also completely see. And that is, well, I've already applied for the county like a couple of times, but I'm just afraid if I keep applying, you guys are going to think that I can't get a job. Like they're very self-conscious that if they've applied 7 times, at some point, somebody in the county side is going to say, well, this person doesn't know how to get a job. Nothing could be further from the truth. when either on the non-merit side or on the merit side, nobody knows anything about what you've applied for before. It's
No.
it's not part of the process anyway, but if nothing else, there's no time. There's a lot of applications to go for, but there's no reason to. We all have applied for jobs, and we know that it can often take more than one try to get an interview, and most people have different versions of their resume because you're trying to highlight, say, customer service, or you're trying to highlight more, um, whatever the skill set might be. It's just a different angle that you're using for your skill set. That's completely normal. It's okay. Don't if I think I applied probably to 6 or 7 jobs before I wanted to work at the county, so I kept applying. But I kind of vaguely do remember that feeling of being self-conscious. Just don't worry about it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. There's
Apply to something that you're not even sure that you're totally qualified for. Still apply.
Mhm.
Applying is still a good skill, even if you don't get an interview. Anyway,
Exactly.
yeah.
And the next question, Sky, is a hard question. What is the Fairfax County policy regarding diversity, gender, disability when making hiring decisions?
Would you like to take that?
Sure.
Okay.
So we kind of touch base on this in our first session where we explained that the county has a very strong way to follow Title VII, which is anything that has to, it's actually a federal law that has to do a lot of any discrimination against, any person for either race or disability or the country they were born from or, their skin. So that is something that we don't have an issue with. But one thing that I also want to make sure that I mention here is that there is no preference for disability unless there is an individual that is tied with another one at the last step, which is, let's say that there are two top candidates that were interviewed and they're really tied. They got the same score, so there will be a preference for the individual with the disability. That's when the preference come to play a role, but not
Mhm.
from the beginning. Although we also have in all our ads, we make sure to include that there are accommodations for any individual with disabilities, even if it's an accommodation we started from the interview, even to the application process. If somebody needs help, we have resources in the county where they can go and get help to apply. Also, if they need an accommodation for the interview, we can do that. If there is an accommodation to perform the jobs, as far as the person um, can perform the basic duties of the job with or without an accommodation. It's going to happen with the county. We're pretty good on
Mhm.
that.
Mhm.
And I don't see
All
any other
right.
questions.
Is there more questions? Are there more questions? I think that's the last question we have, and we are over our time already. And I just want to say thank you to Sky and Patricia for this wonderful presentation. And again, I feel I have learned so much from your talk, and there are a lot of very practical tips people can use and apply. And for our audience, and remember, be prepared, do your dry run, like what Patricia has suggested, practice in front of the mirror and, go over some of the standard questions several times in advance. That will really help you to perform, in the real situation. And also, the emotional side, the psychological side, relax and understand, there are tricks that you can really apply, like what Sky says, how to visualize that you are in a friendly situation, that you are seeing yourself relax and you're seeing your interview, being successful. So all those, tips that you can, try to practice in advance. And I just want to give everybody a personal tip. No matter what situations that you walk into, it can be, I mean, things are kind of hard to predict. There are a lot of variables, and there are questions that you may never be prepared, or people could act, weird or hostile or whatever. But keep in mind, you know, this is personal interaction. Job interview is just simply a person to person interaction. And whether you get the job or not, that it is not always the result that you can, predict or weigh in. But however, if you walk in with a mind and say, I'm going to know this person, I'm going to make friends, um, that it is going to change the situation dramatically. And whether you get a job or not, believe yourself, you are going to gain something from this personal interaction, people to people interaction, that you learned about somebody and you're making friends. And make sure you do your follow up with the interviewers. And I found that it is actually very powerful because a lot of people don't do that follow-up step. And the people who actually do this actual step, follow up with the interviewers, thanks them for their effort and say, this question that you have asked me really touched me. And I found, I think, deeper into what I can offer, for the this position, re-emphasize the qualities that you want to, that could apply to the position. And again, that emphasize will enhance your interviewers' impression about you. So again, all those efforts could give you the extra point. And also make sure when you do your presentation, then for instance, like I say, tell me about yourself. The tell me about yourself has two edge of the swords. On one side, you want to be professional, but on the other side, you want to be personal, that you can, relate to your interviewers. And I found that is going to be, especially helpful. For instance, if you notice your interviewers on the table, they have their pets picture on their table. Talk about the pets, talk about your cats, and again, make that personal connection, make it human, rather than just this really tense um, strictly focus on professional, that, can help ease the environment. So anyway, I just want to thank again our speaker tonight, Sky and Patricia, for presenting this wonderful presentation for our community. And I hope everyone has learned a few tips from this program. Now, for next week, we have a speaker, James Ball. He is a very experienced headhunter, and he had done the recruiting, recruiter's job for many big companies. And next week, he is going to present to our community on the topic navigating careers in the AI era. So it's going to be another interesting topic, and I hope everybody will join us. All right, we're going to close our session for tonight. Thank you, everyone, for your participation. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, you guys. Thanks for the
Yeah.
invitation. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you, Sky. Thank you, Patricia.
Sure. Thank you.
Good night.